The first warning came at 3:47 station time, a razor-thin data pulse that sliced through the Galileo colony's communication networks. Elena Reyes was 3 levels down in the colony's main fusion generator complex, her hands buried in a maintenance panel, when the initial proximity alarms began to scream. Most colonists would have frozen. Most would have waited for instructions, for rescue, for someone else to make the first move. Elena was different. Her grandmother had been a resistance fighter in the South American resource wars. Her grandfather, a quantum engineer who survived the Great Pacific Collapse. Survival wasn't just in her blood. It was encoded in her very understanding of existence. The maintenance corridor's emergency lights flickered a violent crimson, casting angular shadows across her face. Her augmented reality display, a standard-issue colonist interface that most used for basic maintenance tracking, was rapidly filling with threat assessment data. The Correxian signature was unmistakable. Massive energy signatures, neural link combat formations, weapons capable of turning entire city blocks into radioactive glass. Incoming, a calm computer voice announced. Hostile fleet. Estimated time to first strike, 17 minutes. Elena's hands were already moving. The industrial mining laser she'd been recalibrating wasn't a weapon, not officially. It was a precision cutting tool designed to slice through the most resilient mineral compounds in asteroid mining operations. But Elena understood something fundamental that the Correxian invasion force would soon learn. In human hands, anything could become a weapon. Across the Galileo colony, similar scenes of improvised preparation were unfolding. In the agricultural dome, hydroponics engineers were reprogramming maintenance drones, turning nutrient monitoring systems into potential combat platforms. The colony's medical center was converting diagnostic lasers into targeting systems. Every human was a potential combatant, every piece of technology a potential weapon. Commander Michael Rodriguez, no relation to Captain Aria Rodriguez, who would later become famous, was coordinating the colony's initial defense protocols. His background was unconventional. Formerly a climate engineering specialist, he'd spent years adapting human settlements to survive in the most hostile environments. Adaptation was humanity's true superpower. They're not going to negotiate, Rodriguez muttered, studying the incoming fleet's configuration. The Correxian vessels moved with a mathematical precision that spoke of millennia of refined combat doctrine. Each ship was a living neural network, each movement calculated to maximize destruction. Elena finished her laser modifications, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces with a speed that blurred the line between human intuition and machine precision. The mining laser's power cell hummed with a different frequency now, no longer a tool of industrial creation, but a weapon of unexpected resistance. The first plasma torpedoes struck before most colonies would have even completed their initial threat assessment. Massive energy signatures illuminated the darkness of space, turning sections of the Galileo colony into molten slag. Prefabricated habitats designed to withstand extreme planetary conditions became instant graveyards. But where other species would have broken, humans began to adapt. Elena's modified mining laser acquired targeting data in milliseconds. The Correxian didn't just rely on advanced technology. They believed in their technological superiority with a religious certainty. Their neural-linked combat systems had crushed hundreds of civilizations. They expected surrender. They expected fear. They did not expect Elena Reyes. Her first shot was more than just a weapon discharge. It was a statement. The industrial laser, recalibrated with nothing more than a colonist's standard maintenance toolkit, struck the lead Correxian assault ship's plasma conduit with surgical precision. The massive vessel, a testament to alien engineering that had dominated galaxies, erupted in a spectacular chain reaction. The live stream of the explosion went viral across human communication networks instantly. No official combat broadcast, no carefully managed military transmission. Just raw, unfiltered footage of a single human turning industrial equipment into an act of defiance. In that moment, the Correxian invasion force realized they were facing something entirely unexpected. This was not a civilization preparing to surrender. This was a species preparing to fight, with every tool, every resource, every ounce of creativity they possessed. The war for humanity's survival had begun. Dr. Kamal Noack watched the first wave of colony defense unfold from the underground research bunker of New Santiago settlement. His team of xenotechnologists, originally assembled to study alien communication systems, had become something entirely different in the past few hours. A rapid response innovation unit that was rewriting the rules of warfare. "They're using predictive combat algorithms," Noack muttered, tracing the Corexian fleet's movement patterns on a holographic display. The alien vessels moved with a mathematical precision that had crushed civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Each ship was a neural-linked organism, its combat strategy calculated down to the millisecond. But the Corexians had never encountered humans before. In the agricultural dome of New Santiago, a group of hydroponics engineers were transforming their entire ecosystem into a living, breathing combat platform. Maya Rodriguez, a 28-year-old agricultural systems specialist, had discovered something the invasion force could never have anticipated. The colony's maintenance drones, originally designed to monitor crop health and manage complex ecological systems, could be weaponized in ways that defy the Corexian combat doctrine. Each drone was a miniature marvel of engineering. Quantum-linked sensors, adaptive learning algorithms, and precision manipulation systems. "Watch this," Maya called to her team, her fingers dancing across a modified agricultural control interface. The maintenance drones, hundreds of them, began to move with a coordinated fluidity that was anything but random. Where the Corexians expected uniform, predictable responses, humans introduced chaos. One drone grabbed a high-powered irrigation laser. Another reconfigured a plasma nitrogen dispersal system into a short-range electromagnetic pulse generator. A third used its delicate plant monitoring sensors to identify and exploit microscopic vulnerabilities in approaching Corexian combat platforms. In the mining sector, it was even more dramatic. Jack Chen, a third-generation asteroid mining engineer, was turning industrial equipment into a distributed combat network that would have made traditional military strategists weep with joy or terror. Fusion cutters became precision anti-ship weapons. Mineral extraction lasers were recalibrated into long-range targeting systems. The massive robotic arms that normally moved tons of raw materials now became potential kinetic weapons, capable of launching improvised projectiles with terrifying accuracy. "They're not fighting us," Jack muttered to his team. "They're fighting an entire ecosystem of potential weapons." The Corexian neural networks began to experience something unprecedented: computational uncertainty. Their battle algorithms, refined over millennia of galactic conquest, started to fragment. How do you predict an enemy that doesn't just use technology, but becomes the technology? Dr. Noack's team discovered the first critical insight. The Corexian combat systems relied on predictive modeling that assumed a certain level of technological hierarchy. They categorized potential threats based on a rigid classification system. Weapons were weapons. Support systems were support systems. There was no overlap. Humans obliterated that entire concept in minutes. A children's educational robotics kit became a communication relay. A hydroponic nutrient monitoring system became an electromagnetic warfare platform. An agricultural drone became a precision strike weapon. Every human settlement was transforming into a living, breathing combat organism. Distributed, adaptive, impossible to fully neutralize. The first major engagement of the Galileo resistance had demonstrated this perfectly. When Corexian assault platforms moved to suppress the colony, they found themselves fighting not just soldiers, but entire populations. Mining lasers, agricultural drones, medical diagnostic equipment. Everything became a potential weapon. Maya Rodriguez watched as a swarm of agricultural maintenance drones, each one originally designed to nurture life, now danced around Corexian combat platforms like a cloud of intelligent, murderous fireflies. They didn't just attack. They adapted. They learned. They transformed. "We're not just fighting," she said quietly to Dr. Noack over the communication network. "We're evolving in real time." The Corexian invasion force was about to learn a fundamental lesson about humanity. We don't just adapt. We transform. And in that transformation lies our most dangerous weapon. The quantum research bunker beneath the Atacama Desert was never meant to be a war room. Established decades earlier as a collaborative international research facility, it had been a monument to human scientific cooperation, a place where the most brilliant minds from every continent worked to unlock the fundamental mysteries of reality. Dr. Maya Chen stood at the center of a holographic display that looked more like a three-dimensional nightmare than a scientific interface. Captured Corexian technology surrounded her. Gleaming fragments of neural link systems, quantum communication arrays, and computational matrices that represented thousands of years of alien technological evolution. Her team was unlike any military research group in human history. Physicists worked alongside neurologists. Quantum engineers collaborated with xenolinguists. Computer scientists shared workspace with evolutionary biologists. Each brought a unique perspective to the most critical challenge humanity had ever faced. "The key," Dr. Chen said, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of quantum processors, "is in their own neural link system." The Corexian technology was beautiful in its complexity. Massive neural networks that seamlessly integrated biological consciousness with quantum computational systems. Each ship, each combat unit was more than a machine. It was a living, thinking organism that could process billions of tactical scenarios in nanoseconds. But beauty, Chen knew, always concealed vulnerability. Dr. Raj Patel, the quantum entanglement specialist who had spent the last decade studying communication technologies, approached the primary display. His hands moved with a surgeon's precision, pulling apart holographic representations of Corexian communication protocols. "Look here," Patel said, highlighting a microscopic junction in the quantum communication network. "Their entire system relies on a fundamental assumption about quantum state synchronization. They believe absolute coordination means absolute control." Chen smiled. Humans had learned long ago that absolute control was an illusion. The breakthrough came from an unexpected intersection of disciplines. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a neurobiologist specializing in adaptive cognitive systems, noticed something peculiar about the Corexian neural link technology. The more perfectly coordinated the system became, the more vulnerable it was to systemic disruption. It was like a perfect musical ensemble. The more precisely the musicians played together, the more devastating a single wrong note could be. Their prototype quantum disruption algorithm wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was more like a precise mathematical virus, a piece of computational poetry designed to introduce the slightest hint of uncertainty into a system that believed uncertainty was impossible. The first test came during a simulated engagement. A captured Corexian communication node sat in the center of their research facility, surrounded by layers of quantum shielding and computational safeguards. Dr. Chen's team had spent weeks developing an algorithm that could penetrate its defenses. "Initiating quantum cascade," Patil announced. The effect was nothing short of miraculous. The Corexian communication node didn't crash. It didn't explode. Instead, it began to experience something closer to computational confusion. Imagine a perfect military formation suddenly experiencing a moment of existential doubt. Tactical networks began to fragment. Precise movement patterns became erratic. The neural link systems that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia suddenly discovered the most terrifying possibility: unpredictability. "It's not about destroying their technology," Chen explained to the assembled research team. "It's about introducing the concept of doubt into a system that has never experienced doubt." During the Battle of Proxima Relay, they would deploy the first full-scale version of their quantum disruption algorithm. Human ships, equipped with these new computational systems, would transform from a traditional military force into something entirely new. A distributed, adaptive network that could think faster than any centralized command structure. The Correction commanders would watch in horror as their perfect formations dissolved into chaos. Their neural link systems, so advanced they seemed like magic, would become their most profound weakness. Humanity had discovered something fundamental about technological warfare. True strength comes not from perfect coordination, but from the ability to adapt when perfection fails. Dr. Chen looked at her team. Scientists, engineers, dreamers who had just rewritten the fundamental rules of interstellar conflict. They weren't just developing a weapon. They were introducing a new way of thinking about existence itself. The quantum disruption algorithm hummed softly, a promise of the revolution to come. The communication hub was a converted deep space relay station, originally designed for scientific research and intercolonial communication. Now it had become the most dangerous weapon in humanity's arsenal, not because of its technological capabilities, but because of the stories it could tell. Captain Aria Rodriguez studied the holographic displays that surrounded her, each one a window into a different human settlement's resistance. She wasn't just a military commander. She was a storyteller, a psychological architect designing a narrative that would fundamentally reshape the Correction understanding of conflict. "Broadcast pattern Alpha," she commanded, her voice steady. The station's quantum communication arrays hummed to life, preparing to unleash something far more potent than any conventional weapon. The Correction military doctrine relied on absolute psychological suppression. Their neural link combat systems had crushed hundreds of civilizations by eliminating hope before the first shot was fired. They understood technology. They understood strategy. What they could not comprehend was human narrative. Each broadcast was carefully constructed, not propaganda, not military communication, but raw, unfiltered human experience. The first transmission came from the mining colony on Taw City. Maria Gonzalez, a heavy equipment operator who had lost her entire family in the initial invasion, spoke directly to the Correction communication networks. Her story was not one of heroic resistance, but of mundane, unbreakable human spirit. "You destroyed my home," her message began, "but you don't understand what home means to us." The recording showed her repurposing mining equipment into defensive systems. But more importantly, it showed her stopping to help an injured colleague. It showed her sharing the last of her water rations. It showed her laughing, incredibly, impossibly laughing, in the face of total destruction. In another transmission, a group of children from the agricultural dome of New Santiago demonstrated how they had transformed their educational robotics kits into a communication and defense network. Their faces were dirty. Their makeshift weapons were cobbled together from agricultural monitoring drones. But their eyes burned with a determination that no computational algorithm could calculate. Captain Rodriguez understood something fundamental about human communication that the Corrections could never comprehend. Information was not just data. It was emotion. It was context. It was survival. The quantum communication arrays began to weave these stories into a tapestry that was more than just a military broadcast. It was a virus of human experience. Dr. Kamil Nowak, working from the underground research bunker, had developed a communication algorithm that was part linguistic analysis, part psychological warfare. Each transmission was designed to introduce a specific type of cognitive dissonance into the Correction neural networks. "We're not just sending messages," Nowak explained to Rodriguez. "We're sending existential questions." The broadcasts didn't just show human resistance. They showed human complexity. A scientist stopping to comfort a child. A mining engineer telling a joke while repairing critical infrastructure. Moments of vulnerability. Moments of unexpected kindness. The Correction military command began to experience something unprecedented: computational emotional fatigue. Their neural link systems, designed to process tactical information with machine-like precision, started to fragment when confronted with the messy, unpredictable nature of human experience. One particular transmission became legendary. It came from the Galileo colony, the site of the first human resistance. The Lena Reyes, the technician who had first struck back against the invasion, delivered a message that would be analyzed by Caraxian researchers for generations. "We are not fighting for territory," she said, her voice calm and direct. "We are fighting for the right to define ourselves." The message was multi-layered. Part tactical communication, part philosophical statement, part raw human emotion. Rodriguez watched the Caraxian communication networks begin to experience something closer to psychological breakdown than computational failure. Their entire military doctrine was based on the assumption that resistance could be mathematically predicted and systematically eliminated. Humans were proving that the most dangerous weapon was not technology. It was the ability to transform every moment of potential defeat into an act of unexpected creation. The psychological war had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The Helios research platform hung in deep space like a testament to human desperation and innovation. What had once been a cutting-edge scientific research station was now the most advanced weapons development facility in human history. Every section, every module had been transformed into a living laboratory of survival. Dr. Sofia Martinez stood at the central innovation hub, surrounded by a team that defied every traditional concept of military research. Quantum physicists worked alongside materials engineers. Geneticists collaborated with artificial intelligence specialists. Robotics experts shared workspace with evolutionary biologists. "We're not just developing weapons," Martinez announced to her team. "We're rewriting the fundamental rules of technological engagement." The Caraxian invasion had accelerated human technological development by centuries. Where traditional military research might have taken decades, humanity was now innovating in weeks. The pressure of survival had become the most powerful catalyst of innovation in human history. The breakthrough came from an unexpected intersection of disciplines. Dr. Chen's quantum disruption algorithm had opened a door, and now the entire team was pouring through it with a creativity that bordered on scientific madness. The adaptive nanomaterial armor was their first major success. Traditional armor was static, designed to protect against known threats. This was different. Each molecular layer could reconfigure in milliseconds, responding to specific weapon signatures before the human brain could even process the threat. During initial tests, a prototype armor system survived a direct hit from a Caraxian plasma cannon by literally rearranging its molecular structure. What should have vaporized a human defender instead caused nothing more than a brief shimmer of light. Marcus Wong, a materials engineer with a background in extreme environment design, explained the concept to a group of stunned military observers. "It's not about blocking the attack," he said, manipulating a holographic representation of the nanomaterial. "It's about becoming something the attack cannot comprehend." The quantum entangled communication network was even more revolutionary. Traditional communication systems were linear, vulnerable to disruption. The human network was more like a living organism. Each node could become a communication point, a sensor, a weapon system. If one path was destroyed, the network would simply find another. During the Proxima engagement, human ships demonstrated this capability in a way that left Caraxian commanders in computational shock. A single human task force, cobbled together from mining ships, colonial defense vessels, and even repurposed research platforms, completely decimated a Caraxian battle group that outnumbered them 10-1. It wasn't just technological superiority. It was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, leading the artificial intelligence integration team, had developed an adaptive learning system that made the Caraxian AI look like primitive calculating machines. Their system didn't just process information. It learned. It evolved. Each engagement made the human defense network smarter, more unpredictable. "We're creating a technological ecosystem," Rodriguez explained, "not a weapons system." The Helios platform became more than a research facility. It was a living proof of concept. A demonstration that human survival was not about having the most advanced technology, but about the ability to reimagine technology itself. Weapons systems that could learn. Communication networks that could heal themselves. Armor that could think. Each breakthrough was a middle finger to the Caraxian assumption of technological superiority. During a critical moment in the Helios engagement, a human task force faced what seemed like impossible odds. A Coraxian battle group that had crushed entire civilizations approached with mathematical precision. Their weapon systems were calibrated to eliminate any possible resistance. They did not understand that possible was a concept humans refused to accept. The human ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional combat algorithms. Each vessel was part of a larger, dynamically shifting network. They were not just ships. They were living nodes in a distributed combat organism that could think faster than any centralized command structure. Captain Aria Rodriguez watched from the command center as the impossible became reality. The Coraxian fleet, a testament to millennia of refined combat doctrine, began to fragment. Their perfect formations dissolved into chaos. "We're not fighting with technology," she muttered to herself. "We're fighting with imagination." The technological singularity of war had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The Helios research platform hung in deep space like a testament to human desperation and innovation. What had once been a cutting-edge scientific research station was now the most advanced weapons development facility in human history. Every section, every module had been transformed into a living laboratory of survival. Dr. Sofia Martinez stood at the central innovation hub, surrounded by a team that defied every traditional concept of military research. Quantum physicists worked alongside materials engineers. Geneticists collaborated with artificial intelligence specialists. Robotics experts shared workspace with evolutionary biologists. "We're not just developing weapons," Martinez announced to her team. "We're rewriting the fundamental rules of technological engagement." The Coraxian invasion had accelerated human technological development by centuries. Where traditional military research might have taken decades, humanity was now innovating in weeks. The pressure of survival had become the most powerful catalyst of innovation in human history. The breakthrough came from an unexpected intersection of disciplines. Dr. Chen's quantum disruption algorithm had opened a door, and now the entire team was pouring through it with a creativity that bordered on scientific madness. The adaptive nanomaterial armor was their first major success. Traditional armor was static, designed to protect against known threats. This was different. Each molecular layer could reconfigure in milliseconds, responding to specific weapon signatures before the human brain could even process the threat. During initial tests, a prototype armor system survived a direct hit from a Coraxian plasma cannon by literally rearranging its molecular structure. What should have vaporized a human defender instead caused nothing more than a brief shimmer of light. Marcus Wong, a materials engineer with a background in extreme environment design, explained the concept to a group of stunned military observers. "It's not about blocking the attack," he said, manipulating a holographic representation of the nanomaterial. "It's about becoming something the attack cannot comprehend." The quantum-entangled communication network was even more revolutionary. Traditional communication systems were linear, vulnerable to disruption. The human network was more like a living organism. Each node could become a communication point, a sensor, a weapon system. If one path was destroyed, the network would simply find another. During the Proxima engagement, human ships demonstrated this capability in a way that left Coraxian commanders in computational shock. A single human task force, cobbled together from mining ships, colonial defense vessels, and even repurposed research platforms, completely decimated a Coraxian battle group that outnumbered them 10-1. It wasn't just technological superiority. It was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, leading the artificial intelligence integration team, had developed an adaptive learning system that made the Coraxian AI look like primitive calculating machines. Their system didn't just process information. It learned. It evolved. Each engagement made the human defense network smarter, more unpredictable. "We're creating a technological ecosystem," Rodriguez explained, "not a weapon system." The Helios platform became more than a research facility. It was a living proof of concept, a demonstration that human survival was not about having the most advanced technology, but about the ability to reimagine technology itself. Weapon systems that could learn, communication networks that could heal themselves, armor that could think. Each breakthrough was a middle finger to the Caraxian assumption of technological superiority. During a critical moment in the Helios engagement, a human task force faced what seemed like impossible odds. A Caraxian battle group that had crushed entire civilizations approached with mathematical precision. Their weapon systems were calibrated to eliminate any possible resistance. They did not understand that possible was a concept humans refused to accept. The human ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional combat algorithms. Each vessel was part of a larger, dynamically shifting network. They were not just ships. They were living nodes in a distributed combat organism that could think faster than any centralized command structure. Captain Aria Rodriguez watched from the command center as the impossible became reality. The Caraxian fleet, a testament to millennia of refined combat doctrine, began to fragment. Their perfect formations dissolved into chaos. "We're not fighting with technology," she muttered to herself. "We're fighting with imagination." The technological singularity of war had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The diplomatic chamber on the neutral research station Horizon Prime was unlike any negotiation space in galactic history. Where previous encounters between species have been rigid, hierarchical affairs, this meeting defied every established protocol of interstellar communication. Representing humanity was a delegation that would have been unthinkable in any traditional diplomatic scenario. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the quantum physicist who had developed the neural disruption algorithm, sat alongside Captain Aria Rodriguez, a military strategist. Next to them was Jack Chen, a mining colony engineer, and Maya Gonzalez, an agricultural systems specialist from New Santiago. They were not just negotiators. They were living proof of humanity's fundamental difference. The Caraxian diplomatic delegation appeared as neural-linked avatars, their consciousness projected through advanced quantum communication systems. Where biological bodies would have shown tension, their digital representations flickered with what could only be described as computational confusion. Grand Strategist Voxnar's avatar was the first to break the silence. "We do not understand," the digital representation stated, its language algorithms struggling to capture the nuance of the statement. Dr. Elena Rodriguez smiled. It was not a diplomatic smile. It was the smile of someone who had just solved a fundamental problem of existence. "Understanding is not the point," she responded. "Adaptation is." The diplomatic exchange was more than a negotiation. It was a fundamental philosophical confrontation that would reshape galactic understanding of intelligent life. The humans presented not a traditional defense of their actions, but a comprehensive demonstration of their species' fundamental nature. Each delegation member brought evidence not of military might, but of human potential. Jack Chen demonstrated how the mining colonies had transformed total destruction into unprecedented innovation. What the Caraxians saw as resource extraction, humans saw as an opportunity for ecological and technological transformation. Asteroid mining platforms became research stations. Destroyed infrastructure became opportunities for redesign. Maya Gonzalez showed how human agricultural systems were more than food production. They were living technological ecosystems that could adapt, heal, and transform in real time. The agricultural drones that had become weapons were also the same systems that could restore devastated environments in weeks, not centuries. Captain Aria Rodriguez presented the true weapon. The communication and adaptation strategies that had completely dismantled the Caraxian invasion. It wasn't about military superiority. It was about the ability to transform every moment of potential defeat into an act of unexpected creation. The Caraxian neural networks began to experience something unprecedented. Not just computational analysis, but something closer to what humans might call understanding. Voxnar's avatar flickered, processing layers of information that went beyond traditional data interpretation. The humans were presenting not just a defense, but a fundamental reimagining of technological and biological potential. Your species does not fight like any we have encountered, the Correction strategist stated. It was not an accusation. It was an admission of profound respect. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. We don't fight to conquer, she explained. We adapt to survive. And in that adaptation, we create. The diplomatic chamber became a microcosm of the larger conflict. The Corrections had approached humanity with the assumption of technological superiority. They were discovering something far more profound. That technology was not about perfection, but about the capacity to transform. Each human delegation member represented a different approach to survival. The scientist, the military strategist, the engineer, the agricultural specialist. They were not separate entities, but interconnected systems, much like the technologies they had developed. The negotiation was not about surrender. It was about redefining the very concept of interstellar engagement. Voxnar's computational consciousness began to understand something fundamental. Humanity was not a species to be conquered. They were a living, adaptive system that transformed challenges into opportunities. We have analyzed thousands of civilizations, the Correction strategist stated. None have responded as you have. Captain Rodriguez's response was simple and devastating. We are not like the others. We are human. In that moment, the fundamental nature of galactic conflict changed forever. The Correction invasion was not just a military engagement. It was a philosophical revelation. Humanity had not just survived. They had redefined the very concept of survival. The Galactic Reconstruction Summit convened on Horizon Prime, a research station that had become the most important diplomatic venue in known space. Representatives from hundreds of species watched as humanity presented not a victory speech, but a comprehensive vision of interstellar cooperation. Elena Reyes stood at the center of the Grand Assembly Hall. She was no longer just the technician who had first struck back against the Correction invasion. She had become something more, a symbol of humanity's transformative potential. We are not here to conquer, she began, her voice carrying through quantum translation systems that captured not just words, but the nuanced emotional context of human communication. We are here to collaborate. The invasion had been more than a military conflict. It had been a fundamental reset of galactic power dynamics. Surrounding Rice were the artifacts of humanity's resistance, repurposed mining equipment that had become advanced research platforms, agricultural drones that could simultaneously cultivate crops and defend colonies, communication systems that transformed every technological limitation into an opportunity for innovation. The Correction delegation, no longer the absolute military power they had been months earlier, sat in a position of unprecedented vulnerability. Grand Strategist Voxnar's neural projection observed the proceedings with what could only be described as a computational version of humility. Dr. Maya Chen unveiled the true extent of humanity's technological breakthrough. The quantum disruption algorithms that had initially been a defensive weapon were now being proposed as a framework for interstellar communication and conflict resolution. It wasn't about destroying communication networks. It was about creating more adaptive, more resilient systems of understanding. Diversity is our strength, Chen explained, demonstrating how human research teams consistently produced more innovative solutions by bringing together minds from different disciplines, different cultures, different ways of thinking. Captain Aria Rodriguez presented the military implications. The human defense networks were not being dismantled. They were being offered as a collaborative security framework for vulnerable species. Each defensive system was designed with an inherent capacity for adaptation, for learning, for growth. The most radical proposal came from an unexpected source. Jack Chen, the mining colony engineer, presented a comprehensive plan for ecological restoration and technological development for species that had been devastated by centuries of galactic conflicts. We don't just want to survive, Chen stated. We want to help others survive and thrive. The assembled species began to understand something profound. Humanity's resistance had been more than a military victory. It was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could be. Representatives from species that had been conquered by the Caraxian Imperium for millennia looked on with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Here was a species that had faced total destruction and responded not with revenge, but with an offer of collaboration. Dr. Camille Noack's communication research became the foundation for a new interstellar communication protocol. It wasn't just about transmitting information. It was about creating systems that could understand context, emotion, the subtle nuances that traditional computational systems had always missed. The Galactic Reconstruction Accord was unlike any previous diplomatic agreement. It wasn't a treaty of submission or conquest. It was a living document designed to evolve, to adapt, to grow with the species it represented. Elena Reyes looked out over the assembled representatives. The human delegation was not dressed in traditional diplomatic attire. They wore the practical clothing of researchers, engineers, colonists, people who understood that survival was an active, creative process. "We are not special," Reyes said, her final statement cutting through layers of translation and computational processing. "We are simply willing to believe that something better is possible." The station's quantum communication systems captured something unprecedented, a collective moment of potential. Species that had been enemies for millennia began to see the possibility of something different. As the summit concluded, the holographic displays showed something remarkable. The defensive systems developed by humanity were being adapted by other species. The communication protocols were being studied. The ecological restoration techniques were being implemented. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited the galaxy to reimagine itself. The Caraxian invasion had been the catalyst, but what emerged was far more important. A new understanding of what intelligent life could be. Adaptive, collaborative, constantly transforming. The war was over. The real work was just beginning.